So we got on the mill, and I just finished up. We're just cutting this radius in, and we cut this radius in before we, well, after we cut in our hook holes, that radius cutter will blast over that hook hole and make it all chip out. Same as the countersunk holes for the nuts. If we hit this with the radius cutter, it's going to blast them out. So we do those after the fact. And then all I have to do is route this in, and that's it. And then I sand it on the lathe. I use the lathe. I don't use any power. I'll show you the process on the lathe. I just use it as a clamp, and I hand sand all this in, and I get it real nice and smooth. Alright, so we got all our holes drilled, we got our champers done. This thing's still pretty rough shape, but we're gonna cut our tension hoop slot and our tone ring slot. And I use a 3-flute high feed for aluminum, 1/4 inch, and around 1800 RPM. And I'm gonna make some shit go away pretty quick here. So here we go. And it's going to kiss those holes open. You're going to see right there. I'm going to climb mill it too. Oh, there's one wrong thing here. Here we go.
finish pass right here on this outer. We're climb milling it. Real light pass. See how we just opened up that hole right there? That's what I want. For the tone ring now. Gotta go to my numbers. And I'm gonna leave a little bit for a finish. We're gonna hog a bunch of shit out now again. We're gonna climb mill it. So now, since we're cutting this face, we're turning that way. Just that easy. That's how long it takes me to cut out the tension hoop slot and the tone ring slot and one of my banjo heads in real time. Okay, so this is the part we just saw. It's fresh off the mill and this is what we want. I looked at this thing separate and this is where I want the neck to come out, this black line. And that black line set all the points for my hook holes and it set the point for my tailpiece down here. Now my tension hoop slips right inside. It's got just a little bit of wiggle room, so if this thing decides to shrink up a little bit and I have to accommodate for lacquering it, I'm gonna have to lacquer inside of here too, so everything's gonna be shrinking and growing a little bit and we have just enough space to make everything work. Now my tone rings, these are press fit. These are final assembly things. I make sure these are a real tight fit on this rim. And that's it. So we've got a pot and it's ready for sanding now. So I'm going to sand this thing down to around 400 or 500 grit from 80. Kind of reshape it a little bit, get it to look a little prettier. And then we're going to lacquer it and let it sit for a while. And then we'll put a neck on it and it'll be a banjo. Okay, so we're back out in the shop. We've got 4 pots. We had 5 and one of them's, well, he didn't survive. So we got 4 pots now that are roughed out from the mill. And how I do my final shaping on this is kind of crude. So I got my big lathe and she's chucked up here and she's in neutral. And the breaker's off and she's out of gear and everything's happy. And I put a blanket over the ways because I want to save this machine. There's nothing worse for a machine than dust. And this thing is 130 years old and it runs good. And I've run quite a few machines and modern lathes and Colchester tolerance molesters and all that. And this machine is just sexy. I mean, it's got a good feel to it. It's like driving an old car. I mean, fuck, it's nice. It's nice and it makes me a lot of money. So I love this machine a lot, and I do my sanding on it with just a basic, just a crappy little vibratory sander, and I use peel and stick pads, and I built up the pad on this extra thick so she's extra formy on this, and I just foam I like to use for sanding blocks. A lot of information, but it's just a crappy floor mats you buy at Harbor Freight. I cut them up and you can make nice little sanding blocks with them, and just use peel and stick paper, and it'll conform to any shape. And it's just, that's what I like to use, and it's cheap and it works, and everybody should know that. So that's it. Cover everything up with a blanket. I keep it clean. Next time you're gonna see this guy, he's gonna be sanded out, looking pretty. I'm gonna put a little lacquer on it, and you guys will see what it became or will become. Okay, we're back, and that took me 2 hours to sand this thing out, but it's all shaped out, sanded down to 400 grit. Spent most of my time at 80 and 120 just shaping it in, getting these radiuses nice, getting all the blems out, and we have a really nice figured banjo pot, and it's ready for vinyl sealer and lacquer. Now I'm going to take you out for the vinyl sealer part and show you guys how I do that. And that's it. We'll be done with the banjo pot. Okay, so we're out in the paint booth. This is how I paint my pots. I put them on a rotator. That rotator's got an arm. You can move it all around. It's handy. That's just a simple 12 RPM motor. You can buy them for 20 bucks off Amazon. And where the pot bolts up is where I bolt this to, and I'm able to spray the lacquer on it. And this is the vinyl sealer. And how I mix my vinyl sealer for the first coat on these figured wood pots is 50% lacquer thinner, 50% vinyl sealer. This is the best way, because I want that vinyl sealer to soak into that wood. Alright, if I just spray it on there, it'll sit on the top and it won't help me out any. It won't do what I want it to do. So this turned out to be a really pretty pot. This is the one on the lathe we were sanding. It's got some pretty nice stuff in there. So this has to be sanded again, but around 400 grit, and I give it a week to set up nice so it'll sand proper. But yeah, that's a pot. And that'll sit until someone wants to buy it.